Hello, happy coders, and welcome once again to another episode of JavaScript 101. We are getting into some really cool stuff today because we are going to learn how to make our websites more interactive using JavaScript. We've sort of done that already. We've had alerts and prompts and things like that. But the beauty of JavaScript is that it lets our web pages, it lets us alter our web pages. It lets us get input from the user and make changes right on the web page itself rather than in a pop-up box. So that's what we're going to be learning about today. We do this through a thing called the Document Object Model, DoM. The Document Object Model is basically a set of functions, which we've learned about previously, a set of functions that allow us to edit the HTML and the CSS of our websites. Both taking in information from the user as they interact with it and also writing back to our web page so that it can change. So let's get into it. Let's see how that works. So first of all, for the first time in a long time, I'm actually going to go back to index.html and we're going to look at the HTML code that we've got set up here. Because we've actually already got a few links between our JavaScript and our web page, and I wanted to point them out before we go further. So first of all, you'll notice in the head of our HTML, we've actually linked to a script. That's the script that we've been using every time, script.js. And so we've already created that link between our web page, our HTML document, and our JavaScript. In addition to that, down here in the button, we've set it that when the button's clicked, on click, it runs my function. And my function is the thing that we've been editing over here in the script every time. So we're telling it when we click the button, run the JavaScript, which we've previously linked to. So we've already got a few interactive elements. We've already got a few connections between our JavaScript and our HTML, as I keep saying. And we're going to create a whole bunch more right now. So how do we do this? We've got... one more thing in the HTML, we've got this white square and you'll see this is called content panel. It's a div and it's got an ID of content panel. And the reason I created that way back before the first episode was so that we'd have a panel that we could write to, that we could find because we can find it using this ID, and that we'd be able to edit using JavaScript. So let's do that right now. So in the script, we can write lines of code to get that content panel and allow us to work with it. So we'll create a variable, and this variable will actually be an HTML element. It will be this content panel. So I'll just call it content panel because I like that name. And rather than setting content panel to be a number or a word, a string like we've done before, I'm going to set it to be this element. So the way we do that is using a command, a function that's already built into the document object model. So follow along with me. So it's document dot get element by ID. See this option here, get element by ID. And then we need to tell it what's the ID that we're after inside the brackets and inside quotation marks. So we want content panel. So now we have a variable called content panel, and it equals this white square or rectangle that we've already previously set up. And that means we can do a whole bunch of things to it. If I now type in content panel dot, you'll see there are a whole bunch of values and functions, whole bunch of them that I have available. So I'm going to show you a few fun ones now. So I'll start with remove, because it's a function we put in brackets at the end. I'll save that. I'll refresh over here. Maybe you can guess what's going to happen when I run the script. Content panel went away. There might be an element on your web page that when someone, say, clicks a cross or a close button, you want to remove it. That's what we just did there. When I refresh, it comes back. When I run the script, it removes it. So that's one thing we could do. I'm going to comment that out because I don't want to remove it. We can do other things. We can change the style of it. So let's do content panel dot style and now we can choose different parts of the CSS, different parts of its style. So I'll do background color. Yep, there we go. Equals. And we can do that. Save it, refresh, run. And now we can change the style of it. So you could have different triggers, or when the user does different things, you could have it that different stylistic things happen, like the background color changes, or content panel dot style dot width equals, in quotation marks, 200 pixels. Let's save and see how that one works. Okay, so like I said before, there's a whole bunch of things we could do, and there's way too many for me to show you right now. But I'm just trying to demonstrate a few things, that really just the concept that you can actually edit the HTML using your JavaScript. One of the best things that we're able to do, I'm going to comment out both of these. One of the best things we're able to do is we can actually add text, or change the text, or the, not just the style, but the contents within an HTML element. So let's have a go at that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do content panel dot inner HTML. And what this means is we can edit the HTML that's inside this content panel. So I could do something like, so inner HTML equals, I'm going to change the value of its HTML. I could do pretty basic, hello world sort of a statement, save that, refresh, run the script, and there it is inside there. Now, because I'm actually doing HTML, I could do all kinds of things. So for one thing, I can use my HTML tags, and that's a subtle change, but when I run it, now it's moved down a bit because it's a new paragraph. I can do things like put in other tags that will change the style of it. Save, refresh, run, and see there it's bold. But this also means I could have a variable, let's say variable name equals, I feel like we're going right back to the first lesson with variables and things, using my name. So we could say, hi there, I'm going to get rid of strong because I didn't like it being bold, it was just to demonstrate. And then what can we do? We can say plus name plus, and refresh and run. Hi there, Mr. Gat. So hopefully this is pretty familiar. We've done similar things using prompts and using alerts, but now we're actually putting it into the HTML code. I've got my paragraph tags, but I can still add in extra text using variables. So let's take that one step further, because it's all well and good to have this variable here, but what if we actually want to be able to ask the user something? In previous lessons, we would have used prompts, but today we're going to do something different. So I'm going to make sure I've saved that. I'm flipping across to index, to the HTML code, and I'm going to add an additional element. I'm going to add, this is a new tag, not one I've shown you before. It's inside the div here. We're going to add an input. And we need it to have an ID, so we'll give it an ID of name input. And I'm also going to set, just to make things a bit easier, I'm going to set a value for it, which is enter your name. And close the tag. Let's save that and refresh so that you can see what that's done. It's put in this little text box, and it's got the text inside it, enter your name. So when I click on it, I can put in my name. Mr. Gat to you. Now, that's all well and good, but when I run the script, it gets overridden. It's all gone. So let's leave that how it is and go back to our script. I've got this variable name, but rather than making it equal Mr. Gat, I'm going to get whatever's inside this and use that value as the variable name. So using the same sort of code we used up here, so it'll be almost the same. It will be document dot. So I should have explained earlier, when we say document, we're saying it's in our HTML document, and then get element. Oops, I misspelled element by ID, and I forgot what it was. I think it was name input. Let's double check, because if we get that wrong, nothing will work. Yeah, here's our input. The ID is name input. Back to our script, name input. Now, if I just said that, then what it would get, name would equal this HTML element, which isn't exactly what we want. What we want is this HTML element's value. So if we put dot value, oh, not node value. Oh, it keeps changing. Have I done something wrong? Because it's not working exactly how I expected it to. And that makes me think maybe I'm doing something wrong. Let's see. I can't see any problem there. So let's run it and see what happens. So I've saved, I've refreshed, I'll enter my name, and I'll run the script. Hi there, Gat. It did work. Whew. I got nervous there. Okay, now that's all well and good, but what if now I've overridden it, right? Because I changed, when I set the inner HTML, I actually changed what was here and overwrote it. So I'm going to add another level of complexity here to show you how you could not override it, but actually add to it. So to do that, what I will do is I can leave that line of code, and I can leave the last line of code. No, I'll probably change that a little bit. So what I'll do instead is I'll create a new div and I'll add it underneath so that it will always get added inside content panel underneath. I know I'm going pretty fast. I'm teaching lots of different skills here. You can always come back and watch these again if you get stuck. So I'm going to have a new variable, and it's called greeting div. And for this, I will use similar code to what I've been using before. I want to use the document because I'm drawing on the functions of the document object model. But rather than get an element, I'm going to create element. And I'm going to set its type to div. So var greeting div equals document create element div. So I've got a new div called greeting div. And when I want to, I can add it inside here. So let's see how that works. So my next line will be, instead of content panel here, I'm going to say greeting div. There we go. So I've got this div called greeting div. I've set its HTML code to be hi there, whatever my name is. And then I'll say content panel dot append. Append basically means add onto. Append child. So I want to add a child. If you think of this content panel as the parent, anything inside it is its children. They sort of come underneath it in a hierarchy. So content panel dot append child, and I will append greeting div, which is this div that we've just created. I'll save, I'll refresh, I will enter a name and run there. And if I click it again, it will add it again. It's not overriding, it's adding a new div with that content each time. If I change it to my first name and run again, it will add it that way. Pretty tricky stuff, but very, very handy. And as you practice with it and as you use it and as you apply it in different ways, you'll see the power of it. Let's apply it one more time in a way that hopefully you'll see is very useful. So what am I going to do? I can leave all that. That's fine. I'll leave all that and I'll make sure it's saved, and I'll go back to the HTML. And I'm going to add a few more input fields. In a previous tutorial, we made a simple calculator, and it was using prompts and alerts. We're going to more or less create that again, but this time right here on our web page so that the user can see it. They've got an interface to work with. They can enter the information they want and get the answer they want. So inside the div content panel, we've got a child of that, which is our first input field. We're going to put in a few more elements inside content panel. So I'm going to make a new paragraph, and inside that paragraph, I'm going to put several input fields. So I'll have an input with an ID that equals mult, short for multiplication 1. That's all I need there. And then I'll use an X for times, and then I'll have another input field, input ID equals, hopefully you can guess, mult2. So that's the second number that we're going to multiply. Close that tag, and then I'll put equals. And the last input field is called ID equals mult answer. And close that tag. And we don't need a space, and save. I think that's right. Let's refresh and see how that looks. Okay. You can see a logical structure here, right? If you're the user, you can see, okay, I can enter some information here, a number here, enter a number here, and I should get an answer here. Let's do that. Let's program it, because obviously at the moment, we haven't told it to do anything with that. If I run the script, nothing happens here. We don't get the answer. So back to our script. Now we're going to have to do a whole bunch of document get element by ID, because we've got 1, 2, 3 documents, 3 inputs, sorry. We can be a little bit clever about it though. We can do it this way. So we'll get the mult answer first. That's this last one. And we're going to set its value to be whatever that times that is. So document dot get element by ID. And we're going to put in our quotation marks here, mult answer. Again, be very careful that you're matching it, capital A for answer, all of that. Dot value. So we're going to say its value, we want to set it to be equal to this multiplied by this. So here we go, document dot get element by ID mult1. Oh, I don't like that. I'm going to turn on word wrap so that when I keep writing, it will go into the new line. Where did I get up to? Oh dear. Document dot get element by ID mult1, full stop, value. Because we want not this element, remember, we want the value that's inside it. And then we are going to multiply that using the asterisk, the star, and we're going to multiply it by document dot get element by ID mult2 dot value. Save. I think that's right. Let's test it as always. I've saved the index HTML, I've saved the JavaScript. I'll refresh here. It doesn't matter what name I put in. 5 and 4, 3 apparently. And when we run the script, it should get the value here and the value here and assign it to the value here. It worked. Good. Now there's a few problems with this. I don't like that I can type in here. That's no good. So let's fix that one first. There's a few other things I want to change, but let's start to make it so that we can't accidentally type into the answer field. So let's go back to our HTML, and we're going to fix that. So where are we? Here we are. So we've got this input with the ID mult answer. And we're going to add a few more things inside this tag, not just an ID, but a few other things to make this one a little bit better. So the first thing is I'm going to make it wrap. I'm going to say read only, and you can see it's already come up, read only equals, and then in quotation marks, read only. When I save that and refresh over here, I think now I can click on it still. When I try to type, I'm typing now, hear it, nothing comes in exactly how I want it. Well, I'm going to assume that's right, but these two still work and they can write into it using JavaScript. It's just that the user can't change the answer. Also, Another thing I don't like is that I'm using the same button to do this and that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to set it so that when I click on this HTML element, it will run the script to calculate this line. So it's just a couple of extra lines of code. For the button in the HTML here, that's here, you can see that I've put inside the button tags onClick equals my function, and that runs the JavaScript code my function. We can do something very similar here. To the best of my knowledge, any HTML element can have that onClick tag added. So I'm going to say onClick equals, and in quotation marks, I'll say multiply, and the brackets to say that this is a function. And in my JavaScript, I can make a new function that will to run the multiplication. I'll also set a predetermined value, and that will be click to multiply. Save, refresh. Okay, so I can't edit that. I can't type into it, but it says click to multiply. When I click on it, it's going to run this function called multiply. So, don't know what I did just there. So if I go back to the script, I can now, I've got my function. After the end of it, after the curly brace, I'm going to make a new function called multiply, brackets, curly braces. Is that all right? Yep, function, multiply, curly braces, and there it is. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to, all I need is this one line of code. I'm going to take that line of code and I'm going to put it into here. All the rest can stay. That's all the stuff that does the greeting and stuff. That can stay as my function that's run by the button. Let me save that. Let me refresh. Now, if I click the button, it's doing that. It's not doing any multiplication. Even if I put in that, it's not doing the multiplication. I have to click here, and then it should run the multiply code, and then it should give us the answer. There we go. All right. That was a real crash course. Lots in it. When you're applying it to your own projects, you'll likely have to come back and look through some of these and get the ideas again. Also, don't forget, the internet is your friend. Use your favorite search engine. Use websites like W3 Schools to look at the syntax and look at the ways to code these things in more detail. Have a play. Remember that when you type in something like content panel dot, you get a whole bunch of options. You could even just have a look through and see how the different ones work and see the sorts of possibilities that are available. Lots in this, but it's how you make your websites interactive, and so it's a huge part of using JavaScript. I hope you have fun using it and make your websites really interactive. Good luck.